Hey guys, John here from Sonic Drive Studio. I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. Today we're finally checking out the recently released Fender Tone Master Pro guitar amp modeler, multi-effects unit, floor modeler, what have you. By now you must all know about this device and I'm a little bit late to the party, but that's okay. I'm just glad and really excited to have one here in the studio and to show it to you guys. When this thing was released, I just got really excited and I reached out to somebody at Fender and they were kind enough to send one over to me for me to feature on the channel. So I guess you can call this a sponsored video, but I'm not getting paid any money. And as always, all thoughts and opinions are 100% my own, of course. So in this video, we're going to explore 5 different types of tones that I want to try with this unit with 5 different types of guitars. And I'm also just going to talk about my experience with the unit and my thoughts on the unit as well. But before we dive in, let's check out a rock track that I created with the Fender Tone Master Pro and my Gibson Les Paul Custom through the FBE 100 amp model. Check it out. Alright, awesome. I thought that sounded pretty great. Tight and chunky. So that was the FBE 100 amplifier, which is based on a Friedman BE 100. And that amp model offers a couple of switches, and I used the SAT and the HBE switch just to add a bit more gain. I used the matching 4x12 Friedman V30 cab with the SM7B mic, which is a mic that I ended up using for every cabinet in this video, by the way. For the chorus section, I switched on the Universe Vibe pedal, which sounds really nice. And for the outro, the tape echo for a cool rhythmic effect on the rhythm guitars. And I've also added some subtle room reverb for a touch of ambience, which is what I do with most of the tones in this video, by the way. But yeah, I thought it sounded pretty nice and yeah, I like it. It sounds chunky and organic and tight and all that good stuff. So that was really cool. Now, like I said, I want to explore more tones in this video, so we'll do that very soon because I want to see what this thing can do. So the Tone Master Pro is just another modeler, right? Just another floor modeler. Well, sure, I guess. It has some similarities when you compare it to some other modelers, but it also has some differences and some unique features. Now, I'm not going to go over all the small details and everything that this thing can do because obviously it's a device that can do a lot of things. And I'm sure that you guys have already seen a bunch of videos that go into all the technical details. For example, I recommend looking up some videos by Leo Gibson because he goes into the really technical stuff like the latencies and what the device is capable of technically. So check out his videos for that type of information. But having said that, it's not a very complex unit after all. In fact, it's very easy to use and quite straightforward when it comes to the user interface. Now, it's a very new product, of course, so it's in its infancy. So there are some things that could be ironed out, in my opinion, and we'll get to that. But I'm very excited to see how this device will continue to develop in the future with updates and stuff like that. It's going to be fun to see what they add in terms of effects, amplifiers, and other improvements. Now, obviously, one of the big selling points of this device is the user interface with this wonderful touchscreen. And I must say that I really like that, okay? Now, there are some other modeling devices on the market, obviously, that also have touchscreens. And that's cool because I like touchscreens. but they don't really offer realistic graphical representations of the gear. The other modelers that I'm talking about give you either like sliders or just simple knobs basically. But the Fender Tone Master Pro offers really nice graphics, like the amp graphics, for example, is like a true representation of the virtual amplifier. And you can even go in and tweak the controls from the screen itself. So that's really cool. And I really like that about this modeler. Now, in terms of editing, you can do everything on the screen itself, but you can also use these dual function knobs over here that, of course, are also the foot switches, but you can use them as rotary controls as well to adjust the controls of the amplifier and the effects. I found that for moving stuff around, I prefer to use the touchscreen. But for dialing in an amplifier, for example, I prefer to use these rotary controls. That's just my personal preference, but you can use it however you want, of course. Now, while the touchscreen is very nice indeed, I would prefer it to be a touch more sensitive, because sometimes when you click the screen, it doesn't really respond. So maybe they can add a function in the update where you can sort of tweak the sensitivity of the screen. Now, all the menus and options are very easy to access. There's not a lot of stuff to go into, just the stuff you need, and it's right there in front of you. So for people who like a very easy, user-friendly interface, this thing is ideal, basically. You can choose multiple signal flow types in your preset, and those are basically preset. It's nice to have those options, of course, but personally, I would prefer a signal flow that's more flexible and that you can tweak right from your preset screen. So basically that if you want a pedal in parallel, that you can just drag it down and then a parallel path gets created. Just similar to how other devices do this. Maybe that can be added in a future update, who knows? Assigning foot switches on the Tone Master Pro is also very easy and straightforward, and I actually did that for most of the demos in this video. I assigned effects to certain pedals to turn them on and off, sometimes with momentary mode or latching. With some other modelers, this process isn't as easy, but luckily with the Fender, it was very easy. So I'm glad to see that they implement stuff like that with the Fender in a very user-friendly way. Okay, now let's take a listen to another sound demo, and this time with a Fender amplifier, because we need to try one Fender amplifier at least, right? And it will be a clean tone with a bunch of effects turning on and off. And I'm going to use my ESP Ltd EC1000T CTM, the blue one with the Fishman Fluence classic open core pickups on the neck pickup. Okay, let's take a listen. Check it out. It's pretty nice, right? So that was a preset that I created with the Fender 65 Deluxe Reverb amp model with the matching 1x12 65 Deluxe C12K cabinet, again using the SM7B mic on axis. So yeah, I noticed that for this modeler, the SM7B mic is my favorite mic for basically all the cabinets that I've tried so far. The SM57 model is a little bit too bright or too dark in some areas, and I found that the SM7B is nicely balanced. Now for this demo, I had two slightly different chains going on, one for the right side and the other for the left side. Both the chains have the same amp and cabinet going on, as well as the pedal compressor, but on the left side I'm using the digital delay, and the large room reverb. And on the right side, I'm switching that over to the memory man delay and the large plate reverb. And I can switch between both setups with one single switch. So when I press that, the delay and reverb get switched from one to the other. So I basically assigned those bypass functions to one single switch. And for a portion of the song on the right side, I'm also turning on the vibrotone modulation with the dedicated switch, and I really like that effect. Talking about the effects, there aren't a lot of effects in here as of right now, because it's such a new device. Not as many as some of the competing products, but there's a good selection to choose from, and it should be enough to get you started for sure. With overdrives, dynamics, modulation, reverb, filter, delay, and all that good stuff. Most of the effects that I tried are really good. I really enjoyed the modulation effects, the ambient effects, and stuff like that. But some effects, like the pitch whammy, for example, was a bit too warbly for my taste, and it couldn't really handle the polyphonic stuff. A bit too glitchy for my taste, if you know what I mean. But again, that's something that probably could be improved with a future update. All right, now let's try some mid-gain rock, sort of classic rock, with my Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s with the Duncan JB in the bridge. And again, I'll turn on and off some effects here and there with the switches. Check it out. Cool stuff. So for that tone, the amplifier that I used was the British Jubilee lead amp with the 2x12 British Jubilee cab. The SM7B mic once again, and again with the large room reverb. I punched in the chorus pedal for a bit, and then from that part on I enabled the Mythic drive pedal for an extra kick, which is obviously based on a Klon Centaur. And for those lead licks, I turned on the digital delay for a couple of seconds, and then for the final part, I enabled the electric flanger. Now in the first place, I wanted to use the JCM 800 amp model, but for some reason I couldn't really get a good sound out of that amp model, so perhaps that could use some improving as well. I don't know how to describe it, but on the palm mutes I heard some weird sort of crossover distortion or something like that. The built-in stock cabinets are a lot of fun to work with. You can choose a mic and move it across a grid with preset positions. Now, of course, you can also load your own IRs, which I have done, but I'm not going to use them in this video because I just want to show you guys how the stock cabinets sound. But loading IRs through the app on the computer is a very easy process. And the IR resolution on this thing is quite good as well. 4096 or something, I believe. Anyway, so as you heard, you can get some really great tones with the built-in cabinets as well. However, the cabinet section does have a couple of quirks or drawbacks that I do want to address. But I think that these things can probably be addressed in the future with updates. Sometimes it can be a little bit different to find a sweet spot because of the preset positions. Sometimes one position is a little bit too bright and then the other is a little bit too dark. And sometimes I find myself wishing that I could go in between those. So it could be cool if they added some form of interpolation so that you can drag a position in between the positions, if you know what I mean, just for fine-tuning that tone. I also tried to blend two microphones on the same cabinet. So what I did was create a parallel path and add two cabinets blocked, one on each path. But when I blended the two different microphones, unfortunately, I got phasing issues. So maybe if they minimum phase transform the IRs in the stock cabinets, that problem could be solved. But it would be even nicer if you could choose 2 different microphones in one single cabinet block. That would make the workflow much easier, I think, for adding microphones to one cabinet. So, while the cabinet section is fine for now, it could use some work. Now I want to try some metal tones, okay? And first we're going to try a 6-string guitar, my Schecter E1 Apocalypse Red Rain on the bridge pickup. And let's try the double rack amplifier. Let's take a listen. Alright, so that was the double rec amplifier, which is based on a Mesa Boogie rectifier amplifier. I used the matching 4x12 Mega V30 cab, again using the SM7B mic, and this time I used the green box boost up front, so a tube screamer, for extra gain and tightness. Now with some of the amplifier models, like the double rec for example, and the EVH amp models, I kind of got the feeling that they were a little bit under-gained. As if there wasn't enough gain on tap, especially with the EVH red channel. Now I have a couple of EVHs here. I have the LBX amplifier and also the EL34 50 watt amplifier up there. And the red channel on those amplifiers have a lot of gain on tap. So when you set the gain control on 10 o'clock, for example, there's already plenty of gain and it's very saturated. But with the virtual amp model of the Stealth, which I haven't tried in real life, I must add, there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of gain on tap. Maybe that's just how the Stealth amplifiers sound. I don't know, since I've never tried one. But that's also something that I just noticed. Of course, you can fix that by adding a boost up front. I believe there's also a clean boost, so you can fix that with some pedals and stuff like that. But that's just something that I noticed. For one of the riffs, I kicked on the electric flanger again, with a switch set to momentary, and I also kicked in a digital delay for a couple of bars. So yeah, I thought it sounded pretty cool. A nice metal tone right there. Okay, and now one more tone, one final tone, and something a bit more extreme, something a bit lower tuned, and I'll use my Schecter Hellraiser C6 for that, which is baritone guitar, 30-inch baritone guitar, tuned to drop F sharp, through the Uber amplifier model. Let's take a listen. Cool. So for this tone, I really wanted to try something filthy and nasty sounding, and that's why I ended up with the Uber amplifier, because it's a really wild sounding amplifier. And it's a very interesting amplifier as well, by the way, because the treble control kind of acts like a mid control, and the mid control kind of acts like a treble control, and the presence control is super weird as well, which is probably also the case with the real amplifiers, but I found that quite interesting. I did use the green box boost up front again for added tightness and clarity, which is very useful, especially with these super low tunings. I used the matching 4x12 Uber V30 cab, again with the SM7B mic, and for one section I punched in the Phaser 90 pedal, which sounded great as well. And by the way, for all the clips in this video, I did use the Fender Tone Master Pro as my USB audio interface connected to my DAW, and I must say that that worked really well, very smoothly, and everything worked as it should, so that's great. I also used the reamping feature on this thing because I wanted to go back, tweak some settings, and also punch in and out some effects here and there. And again, all of that worked really well. Reamping with this device is a breeze. To reamp, you do have to go into the menu, to the ins and outs, and then set the USB mode to reamp, which is very easy, obviously. So at one point, I wanted to change the USB level, so I went into the mixer. And in the mixer, you can basically drag the sliders up and down, which is cool. But I noticed that I wanted to have a bit more control over the fine tuning of the sliders. So it would be cool, perhaps for the future, that if you go to the mixer page, you can adjust the sliders with the rotary controls as well for more control over those fine numbers, if you know what I mean. Perhaps that could be added in a future update. In terms of the in and outs, the Tone Master Pro is really well equipped with 4 effects loops, 2 of which are analog, which should work well with certain fuzz pedals and stuff. We also have XLR outs as well as TRS outs, an XLR input as well for mics, external pedal inputs, and all that good stuff. So it has anything that I would need, basically. So this thing should function really well when performing with it on stage in terms of the ins and outs. The PC app also works really well, and it's basically exactly the same as the interface on the pedal itself, so that's really nice. So again, tweaking this unit, whether it's on the unit itself or on the PC, is just very easy and straightforward, and I love that. So what are my thoughts on the Fender Tone Master Pro? I think that it's a really nice device that will appeal to people who like a very straightforward and tactile interface. So I do think that there definitely is a market for it. The touchscreen graphics look really nice, and it's just a breeze to work with. And for some reason, when you have those nice graphics on your screen in front of you, it's just a bit more inspiring to use. Everything is easy and well laid out, and you don't even need to read the manual to understand this thing. You can definitely get some great tones out of this. The effects are fine. The amplifiers are fine for the most part. Some of the amplifiers could use a little bit of improving, like the JCM 800, for example. That's just my honest opinion. But I'm sure they'll also be adding a lot of amps in the future, and I'm very excited about that and to try new amplifiers that they add. I can't wait, basically. And all the Fender amplifier models that I tried sound great as well. And something that's really nice is that the reverb amplifiers have the actual reverb inside the amp block, for example, or the vibrato or tremolo effects and stuff like that. And I also appreciated that the Friedman amp model, for example, has all the switches built into the amplifier as well. It's not very affordable. It's a sturdy and luxurious box though, but you do get a lot for the money, especially when you compare it to a tube amplifier in the same price range. Anyway, so again, I think it's a very cool device. It's not perfect yet. I did touch on some of those things in the video that could be improved. But yeah, we have to take into account that this is a very early stage for this device, and I'm very excited to see where this will go in the future with updates. I'm definitely going to do more videos with this thing in the future, so stay tuned for that, including a video on the built-in EVH amplifiers, of course, because these models are officially licensed by EVH. Now, for me, it's very hard to decide if this is the perfect modeler for you. It all depends on your needs and what you sort of want out of a device like this. But I hope that my demos and my thoughts will kind of help you to sort of understand what this thing can do and how it sounds. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you found it useful. If you did, please drop a like and subscribe down below, as that really helps the channel out. I'd usually appreciate that. And also let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on the Fender Tone Master Pro. You can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook and Instagram, of course. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you very soon. Cheers!